Welcome to Little Known Black History Facts. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Black women and head wraps. Fabric crowns. African American women's hair has always been political. The subject of the treatment of black women based on the hairstyles they decide to wear is not an isolated or new experience. The policing of black hair, especially that of black women, has been happening for centuries. Throughout the antebellum American South, South America, and the Caribbean, many slave masters required enslaved black women to wear head coverings. Headscarves served functional purposes like protecting women's scalps from the sun, sweat, grime, and lice. They were also symbolic markers indicating a slave's inferiority in the social hierarchy of the time period. But enslaved black women found many creative ways to resist. For example, in parts of Central America and the Caribbean, black women used the folds in their headscarves to communicate coded messages to one another that their masters could not understand. In Afro-creole culture, head wrap traditions were a classic example of turning lemons into lemonade in spite of oppression. In 18th century Louisiana, free mixed-race Creole communities served as buffer class between powerful whites and enslaved blacks. But as French and Spanish men sought and forced relationships with women of color, race and class lines became increasingly obscure. The Tignon Law was a 1786 law enacted by the Spanish governor of Louisiana, Esteban Rodriguez Miro, that forced black women to wear a tignon headscarf. A tignon is a headdress used to conceal hair. It was adorned by free enslaved Creole women of African ancestry in Louisiana. The regulation was meant as a means to regulate the style of dress and appearance for people of color. Black women's features often attracted male white, French, and Spanish suitors, and their exotic appeal was a perceived threat to white women. The Tignon Law was a tactic used to combat the men pursuing and engaging in affairs with the Creole women. Simply put, black women competed too openly with white women by dressing elegantly and possessing noteworthy beauty. The law was intended to halt plissage unions and tie freed black women to those who were enslaved. Plissage was a recognized extralegal system in French and Spanish slave colonies of North America and in the Caribbean, by which ethnic European men entered into civil unions with non-Europeans of African, Native American, and mixed-race descent. The women were not legally recognized as wives, but their relationships were recognized among the free people of color as left-handed marriages. The Tignon Law's purpose was twofold. It supposedly prevented black women from enticing white men with their hair, but it also served as a social indicator. Light-skinned black women who dressed extravagantly were often mistaken for white European women. The decree stated that women of color had to wear a scarf or handkerchief over their hair as a visible sign of belonging to the slave class, whether they were enslaved or not, specifying that Negro mulattoes and quadroons could no longer have feathers nor jewelry in their hair, but instead they must wear their hair plain or wear handkerchiefs as scarves as well, especially if they were of a higher status as they had been accustomed to, for example, in plissage. The true purpose of the law was to control women who had become too light-skinned or who dressed too elegantly or who, in reality, competed too freely with white women for status and thus threatened the social order. There is no evidence that the law was ever enforced, and the women who followed the law turned their headdress into a mark of distinction. Black women did not despair. Instead, they abided by the rule and turned it into a fashion. The women used unique colors, jewels, ribbons, and wrapping styles, which accentuated their exotic allure even more. Out of this bore the various head ties seen today on black women using unique materials, patterns, and flair. Making the best of a bad situation, the African, Caribbean, and Creole women of Louisiana turned the oppressive Tignon laws into an opportunity to further display their cultural pride. They crafted their tignons out of colorful, luxurious fabrics and added jewels, ribbons, and flowers to turn their headdresses into bold statement pieces. By the early 1800s, the Louisiana Tignon laws were no longer enforced, and black women were more than ready to cast off their oppressive accessories. Centuries later, however, Tignons have experienced a rebirth. The Tignons of today, available in a variety of styles, fabrics, and patterns, can be the crowning jewel of an elegant outfit. In the 1990s, artists like Erykah Badu, Lauryn Hill, and India Arie popularized colorful and towering head wraps for a new generation. These artists' head coverings pay tribute to a long, rich history of black hair culture. While the style was new and unfamiliar to many outside the African diaspora, head wraps quickly entered the mainstream. Head wraps are fabric crowns that serve as a protector of the hair as well as beautiful head adornments. Just like the church lady hats, head wraps are part of black hatitude. Until next time, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Press the bell to be notified of future uploads. Thank you for watching.